Welcome to another episode of Board Game Specialists. I am Carla.
And I'm Melanie.
And we are in episode number 21. Today we are going to talk about our favorite crime games. This is one of Melanie's favorite genres.
It really is.
I think it's one of them. But before we get into that, let's talk about some of the games we've been playing. What have you been playing, Melanie?
So I played Quadropolis, which is, you know what, I don't know how old this game is. I played it the first time, I played it once before I was recording my games. I record all my games on the BG Stats app now.
Yeah.
And this one, the first time I played it, I remember playing it, it was before, so I don't remember when it was. I think sometime in 2018. But then I played it because I bought it last month or so, and then so me and Lee played it, and it reminds me of Meadows, the way that you use the little arrow tokens to kind of pick which tile you want to get, and then you add that to your tableau. But what's really interesting is, like, you got to put one, so let's say it's a 2 on it, then you got to take the card that's 2 in, that you can put it all around, but then when you put it on your tableau, it has to be on one of the 2 space, so it gets really limiting. And then on the last round, I was like, oh, great. I don't have any 4 space left, and I have a 4 token, but it will do me no good. And then some other cards you got to place workers on. Some you got to place power on. Some will give you workers. Some will give you power. So you want to try to get the proper stuff to kind of get it in. And then the way things interconnect scores a different way. It was really neat. It was a lot of fun.
That's a really good one.
I played...
I really like that. The planning in it. I'm more of a tactical player, so the planning, I usually screw myself. Like you said, at the end, you're like, I have no spot for this. What am I even doing? But
yeah, exactly.
Good game.
One thing that was neat too is because when you build like the apartment buildings, you can build up. So if you have a 2, you can build a 2 on another number if it's the second level.
Yes, that's right.
And so on. So that was... Yeah, so that was interesting. It was a really neat game. It played super quick. It was super easy to learn, super easy to teach. So it was fun.
And there's variants
and
you
then
can
we
make that game harder too, right? Like there's some...
you can flip things up. Yeah. Yeah,
right.
we didn't do that yet.
Yeah, but more to come.
Then I played Creature Comforts with Lee and with Lily.
Oh, what did they think?
And Lily loved it.
Oh, awesome.
She loved it. I still found it plays a little long. There's a bit of downtime when we're playing, but it's a very satisfying game. So she was like, the next day was like, hey, can we play Creature Comfort? I was like, no, we got like half an hour. We don't have time for that one. But
once she knows it, it's going to get quicker. You'll
I might get a little bit quicker, but no, it was cool. And this one is, there's lots going on, but it's not a super complex game. So, yeah, it was really well received. She really liked it. And what's not to like with all the tokens and all the artwork and stuff, so it's super cool. And then after that, we played Love Letter. Because we played Love Letter lots. And it's one of those that, it's such a simple game. There's 16 cards of, 8 different characters. And yet it just plays, it's just so fun. This is one that we play often, and it's basically you have one card, you draw another card, then you'll play one card, and you're trying to either eliminate the other players or to be the last person with the highest valued card at the end. And it's very simple, but it's one that's just tons and tons of fun. Then what else did we play? Actually, I think that's all I'll kind of talk about, because that's all I've written down here. I know we've played a few other ones, but it's not written down, so I don't remember. How about you? What did you play?
So I played Foundations of Rome. Cherry got her big Kickstarter version in, and that is a big box. It has trays in it.
Because it has lots of building.
Yes.
They're
3D
Roman
buildings
and stuff in there, right?
And they're beautiful. But you pull out a whole tray, and that's your player tray. So you have this board with all these buildings on. And we only played a 2-player. It's still a fast, quick game, though. It really could have... They could have produced this game with cardboard, and, it's like a 45-minute game. It's not a 3-hour lavish game, but it's really neat. It's really good mechanics. So all you're doing is you have this row of cards in front of you, and those are all the plots that are on this grid, right? And you do start with a few cards, so you start with a few placements on the grid, and you'll put these little pawns, because those are your ownership, you own those. And on your turn, you can either buy another card, which is another plot, or you can put a building out. So if you own some connected plots that is in the shape of one of your buildings, you can put them out. And you have 3 types of buildings. You have a building that will give you income, like money income. You have a building that will give you population, so it has like people on it, and you need population to win the game. And then you also have one that will give you points depending what it's next to. Like, and that's the thing.
Okay.
So it's kind of interesting. And so it can give you points if you're next to money or if you're next to people, depending if you want more population or more money. And then so you could build a small building, and then say next round you spread out and have more plots. Then you can put a bigger building in that plot by taking your smaller one out. But you can never put like smaller ones in the place of a bigger one. You can only build bigger. You can't build down. And it's kind of neat because you want to be next to some of their buildings, because it doesn't matter if it's yours or theirs. If it's one that just wants to be next to a certain kind, like sometimes you'll like luck out and get one right in the middle of like all these surrounding buildings, and then you just collect a bunch of income from that. It kind of has an Acquire feel. I don't know if you've ever played the old game Acquire, where you're kind of building.
No, it's one that I've looked at a few times, but yeah.
I have it. I've never played it. I bought it used, that Acquire. But anyway, this one I would say is a modern, more streamlined version. It's really fun and quick. And I've tried it once before when I was on the cruise. They had a play type of it because they hadn't even brought it to Kickstarter yet, I believe. And so we got to play it there. And we played a 4-player, and it's quite different because you're like taking up more space. And the board is bigger depending on the player count, but it's really pretty and fun. We'll have to bring it to Malcon. I'll have to get her to bring it because it's a really neat, and like if you see it at the table, people will stop by and go, "What is this?" It was really fun. Another one I played, I had purchased Founders of Teothuacan. Now, it's in the same, I'd say, world as Teothuacan, but it's not like the same type of game. It's a tile laying game. It's very pretty as well. But in Teothuacan, it's a dice placement, and you're like building pyramid and like houses and all different things. But in this one, you're building just the tiles. There is a little pyramid in your player board that you're also building, but they're all like cardboard tiles. They're still very nice. But you're also building different buildings around this pyramid that will give you different types of income or different types of bonuses. Or if you cover up enough of these little masks, which is kind of a theme in the other game as well, then you get these masks, which are points. And the first one to get the first, like, they start in descending order. So the first one is high points, and then it gets lower and lower and lower. So you want to cover up these masks as fast as possible. And also acquire a bunch of resources so that you can build the pyramid. It's a really neat game, and it was not what I thought when I bought it. I thought it was going to be sort of a real simple, easy game. It's quite thinky, but it's really fun. And then we also got to play Wonderlands War. I don't think I talked about this one yet, but Cherry that was another one of her Kickstarters we got. Now, I'm not normally into battle games. I don't love the rolling of dice to battle or just the luck of the draw to battle, because I usually lose. I don't have a lot of luck, and that's why I usually play strategy games, because then I have a chance. But this was really interesting because it kind of combined Quacks of Quedlinburg, because it's a bag builder. So you're building up your bag of little battle treats in there, and also things that can like upgrade other things. It's still the luck of the draw, because you have this round at the beginning where you go around a rondelle. And kind of like Heaven and Ale, where you go forward, but you can't go backwards. So you could jump as far ahead as you want. But you all have to get at least 3 cards. So if you go all the way around and you've only got 1 card, well, then you go around again. But you're always going like in clockwise order, unless you have this special player power where you go the opposite way. So you get these cards, and the cards usually will give you more chips to throw in your bag. So after that, and while you're getting these cards, each card will let you put out some of your pawns and different battle sites, and then you're gonna fight each other there if anybody else is there with you. So after you do the round of collecting chips and little knickknacks and putting out your pawns, then you go into the battle. So there's, I think, 8 different areas, 6 or 8, and each one is gonna have a battle. And if nobody's there, you just automatically win. And it's just points. So say one section could have the winner gets 8, and then the second place will get 4. And it changes each round as well. So say all 3 of us were in one spot while we're in a battle. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we count how many people, like our I'm going to say pawns, but that's not what it is there. And then we do have a chance to put our main person on one of those spots before we battle. And then we take our bag and we each pull out a chip, and we open our hand like this, and whatever this chip is, it could have like a 6 on it, and that would mean that's 6 towards the battle. Or it could just be like something that like makes us take away pawns and adds no battle. Or it could be something that lets us forage and put a chip down somewhere to open up another bonus. So it's kind of neat because it has like a little bit of a Euro feel, but it's still a battle game, but it's fun because of the deck builder. It was really interesting. And then it has the Alice in Wonderland theme, which is really hot right now. There's a lot of those games coming out, but it's really, really interesting. It's definitely a looker as well. Like, you have these thick poker chips. They're not just like cardboard. They're these thick, colorful poker chips, and the minis are so cute. And some people have showed online their painted versions of them. They're just awesome. But it's another one you guys should give a try too. And
so
those are the
now
ones
I've heard
I'm
a few
about.
reviews on that one. And one of the things that I've heard as a complaint was that it played really long. Did you find that?
Cherry taught us. We kind of had to learn a little bit as we went, but I didn't find it was a 3-player. We're all pretty quick players. I could see if there's a lot of AP in your group, because you would want to, like, thinking about, well, where am I going to put these pawns? In games like that, I don't really think about it. I'm just like, I'll just put them here. I don't. Yeah. But I could see if people were, I got to get the optimal move. I lucked out totally and won. I don't know how I won. I don't usually win battle games. And I think everyone was shocked at the table too. But it was not because of deep strategy, I tell you that. It was because I'll just go here. Let's just try this, So I could see if people who are very into battle games were really thinking through their...
Right.
But if you're just kind of going out to, like, I don't know, have fun and just kind of, let's try this.
See where it takes you.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know about I didn't find it went too long. I mean, I don't know. I think it might go up to 5 or 6 players, so it could go long, maybe with that many. But I'm not positive. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about today for your played games. Now, let's get into our top 9. Now, do you have any honorable mentions?
I do, actually. Yeah. I have a few. So I didn't put in my list any of the exit and unlock games, even though some of them are kind of crime-based, which makes it really interesting, but I didn't put that in there. I have purchased a little while ago the Godfathers or Corleones Empire, and I didn't put that in my list either just because I've never played it. But I opened the box and I was looking at stuff, and it looks amazing, and everybody gets like a little suitcase that you put stuff in there, and then all the miniatures. It looks like it's going to be great. It looks like it might be a little mean as well.
It's very mean.
So we'll have to wait and see. And then a game that was really cool that I used to have when I was a kid. My mom had purchased it in a yard sale, and I didn't add it to my list, but that was Stop Thief. And it was super cool. Like, they have it re-implemented now, and it plays with an app, but at the time when I had it, it came with like this little electronic machine, and you had to listen to the noise of where the thief was. And then if you got close, it would start running away and break windows or go through doors. And like you would listen to all of this trying to figure out where it was. It was really neat. I considered buying it again. And I was watching something, and it's like, because I remember this game being so amazing, but then somebody's like, well, yeah, it's good. It has lots of nostalgia, but it's definitely on the easier game side.
Oh, yeah.
So probably would get kind of tired of it just because, you know, I remember it being great, but that was 30 years ago. So, but those were ones that I wanted to mention.
Nice. Do you want me to do my own?
Now, do you want me to go into my number 9 now?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So for my number 9, I have Sherlock 13. It was printed in 2013, created by Hope S. Huang, and it's created by Boardgame Factory. Now this one, I purchased it for a friend as a birthday gift, and I didn't really know anything about it. And then we ended up playing it when she came over, and I loved it. It was so good. So, and then I came across on Facebook Marketplace, somebody was selling their copy, and I was like, oh, I'll buy it. So I went and bought a secondhand copy, but everything was still in shrink. They had never played it. So, and what's really great with this one is everybody gets this little shield that they put in front of them, and you get a piece of paper, and there's 13 characters from the Sherlock Holmes series, and that's all on your little sheet of paper, but each character has different symbols assigned to them. So the inspector has like the police badge. It might have, you know, like a pipe and maybe like a clue thing, or like, while some of them have like a skull if they're part of like the bad people, and like there's just different symbols assigned to each one. And then on your turn, you can do one of 3 things. You can ask how many people has the jewelry symbol. And anybody who has a character with the jewelry symbol put their hands up. But now you don't know how many they have. You know how many you got assigned, right? So it's like, okay, well, but then let's say there was 4 total, and 2 other people put their hands up, and you have 2 of them, then you know, okay, well, one's assigned there, one's assigned there. I have the other 2, so whoever has a jewelry symbol is not the murderer, so you can cross those off. And then, or you can ask specifically, Carla, how many skulls do you have? And then you can answer, I have 2, or I have 1,
I have to tell the truth?
The answer is.
Do I have to tell the truth? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I was like, oh, okay, well, I have 1, she has 1, there's still 1 out there. Okay, good to know. And so you're going through that until you kind of have it narrowed down enough that you kind of know who it is. Then you can also say, okay, I'm going to solve the crime. I think it's Watson that was the murderer. And then you check the card that's face down in the middle. Like, it is a very simple version of like I don't know, what is it, like Secret Identity, or like kind of a clue type game. It plays in probably about 15 minutes. It plays quick, but it's so satisfying, so fun. So that's my number 9, Sherlock 13.
See, I thought this was a new game. Did they remake this game? Or no?
I don't know if they remade it, but it says it was published in 2013.
Oh, okay, because I can see it. I picture a new box, but maybe I'm thinking of a different name. Awesome. All right. So before I get into
a white box with like a Sherlock.
Yeah. Maybe I'm thinking of something different. I have 2 little honorable mentions. One is a nostalgic game that wouldn't really fly today as a modern board game, but just brings back a lot of memories that I played with my kids. They loved this game. It was called Break the Safe. And it was had a little electronic thing in the middle, and you would have to go and check with these keys that you found. You'd put it in and see if it made the noise that was correct. Like, you had to find this correct safe that you opened. And you just have these little player pawns that move around this board by rolling dice, and you go into these rooms and you check these little square things. You flip them over, and then you check them in this thing in the middle. But these dice can also roll the security guard or the security guard's dog, and they can come after you. And if they are ever in your line of sight, if you're in the line of sight of the security guard, then you're caught and you get sent to this little, it's kind of like a jail thing. Or if you're in the line of smell of the dog, so he can even smell you from around a corner kind of thing, you'd get sent to this jail, and you have to get somebody else to waste a turn to get you out. And then you have to kind of go around the other way so that they can't find you. It's kind of like, it seems like a simple game, and it probably is. I haven't played it for years, but it was just one of those games that kids would always pull out, and it interested me a little bit more than like say sorry, like, or some a game like that. So that was just a little bit nostalgic. The other one I'm going to mention is one that I won from a couple in Edmonton. And, Kavre. I was just blanking there. Kavre, they have a YouTube channel, and they had put out, when they do some, like, free, what are they called when you give away games?
Giveaways?
Yeah, like giveaways. What do you call when you give away a game? A giveaway. Anyway, so I won one of theirs, and it was a game from Calliope Games, which they're a wonderful company. They have so many games that I like. And this one was called Mansky Caper. And I'd never heard of it, but it was really interesting. And I've only played with 2 people. It would be fun to play with more. And so what you're these thieves, and you're breaking into this house of this mansion of a house, and you're going into all the rooms, and you're opening these like vaults and stuff. And so you kind of will start in different rooms, and on your turn you can either open the vault and then grab some stuff out, but you could end up blowing something up in your face, and you blow up the whole room and you ruin it for everyone, and they have to run back to the car. Or you could pull out some jewels or some money, and then you could chance it again next round doing that. And if somebody else is in the room with you, then you have to split the loot with them. And then you can run back to the car and hide your loot there, like on a turn. And you just do this until you've blew up too many rooms and the cops come, or you've gotten enough stuff and you run back to the car, and then you guys will all count your own loot, and whoever has the most wins. It's kind of a neat little game, a push your luck game. And that's my other honorable mention, Mansky Caper. But my number 9, funny you should talk about this one, is Godfather Corleones Empire.
Ah, nice.
Made by Eric Lang, which is one of your love designers, because he made Blood Rage. And this was made in 2017. Now, you said you wonder if it's a mean game. It's a very mean game. But I will accept it because I like the theme. I was a huge fan of Godfather, but the theme is just like kind of tongue-in-cheek. You got to go into the game knowing that you're going to get screwed over probably every round at some point. And so you just give it back. It's not like you can't go into this game thinking every round I've got to get out safe and never die in the river. Well, you're going to. So what you do is you have a hand of cards you start with, and you have a certain player pawns, and you can place them in different areas in the city. And what you're trying to do is be able to control these areas, because at the end of the round you will go around and see who's controlled what areas, and then they get to put like a little tsk on that area, and you play a bunch of rounds, and then whoever at the end of the game has the most discs in certain areas will get more points and possibly win the game. But while you're placing your people, you also get to do an action. So you mostly will do these backdoor actions where you can like take guns, you can hide stuff in your little safe or your little briefcase, which is this little tin box, which is really cool. And so you can put money in there, weapons, drugs, like all different kinds of things that you may want to sell later, or you might have to give them up to get something else. And it's a very thematic game. And the other thing you can do is you can toss people into the river. So if you go to a certain place and you have like these cards that'll let you do that, because you can buy cards as well and pick them up, or you can pick up cards in different areas, and it's all kinds of things, but it all like makes sense, and it's just really funny. And there's a bit of a set collection for some of your cards. And some of the money, like, you'll put in your vault, but then somebody can steal out of your little safe vault, and they can take the top cards, so you want to put the lower numbers on top. And it's still fun. It has a little bit of a Euro aspect where you still are, collecting things and trying to do the proper order of things in order to benefit the most out of it. It's really neat. I think you'll like it. I think your family will like it too, because it's got that take that to it, but still it's fun, and you'll all be talking like the Godfather by the end. That's my number 9.
Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So for my number 8, I have Sheriff of Nottingham, published in 2014, created by Sergio Halaban and Andre Zatz. And this one is you're selling these goods in the city, but first you got to get into the city, and you're trying to sneak some contraband in, possibly. So you're a little shady. So I guess you're the criminal in this one. And this is another one that I really suck at because I just assume everybody's lying. I have very little.
So you call everyone's bluff in this one?
I do. I call everyone's bluff, and they're not lying. Then I end up having to be paying because you take turns being the sheriff. And what happens is people will have their own little pouch, and they'll put some cards into it that you've been collecting, and you can pass it on and say, "Oh, I have 4 cheeses in here," or "I have 3 pieces of bread," or "There's, 3 apples," or whatever it is that you're bringing into the market. Now that's what you're saying, but it could be that you've got actually illegal spices in there as well, or maybe there's weapons or different things that are not allowed to come in. But then you could be like, no, just to sweeten the deal, here's some money for you to just let me in. And as a sheriff, you have to decide whether you want to take the money or if you're going to look in the bag. Now, if you look in the bag and they're telling the truth, you're going to end up having to pay them. Now, if you look in the bag and they were lying, those contrabands gets pulled out.
Yeah.
And, of course, the contrabands are going to be worth more points at the end as well.
And then you get some of it, don't you? If they were wrong?
You don't get the contraband.
But you... Oh, okay.
Do you keep the money?
You get something.
I think you turn down the money, so...
But you get something in their bag, I think, if they're wrong. I think. I haven't played it for so long.
I can't remember. It's been a while since I played it. But yeah, it's funny because then at the end you're trying to collect as more of these resources. Like so much apple's going to be worth so much points, so much cheese, and all these other things you're bringing in are going to be so much points. And then you open the bag and you put them face up, but the contraband gets put face down on the top of your board. It's like, oh, you sneaky devil. So... And it's playing with your kids is interesting because it's kind of like, okay, that kid can lie really well. Yeah. It's like, what else is they lying about, and I remember the first time I played with Lee and he was sneaky too. It's like, you think you know a guy, but it's really interesting. It's always a lot of fun. And actually, I think I won this game once.
Oh, nice.
But it's just, because most of the time, I was just like, I don't think you're real. I think you're lying. I'm going to check. But yeah, it's just a fun one. And that's my number 8, Sheriff of Nottingham.
Well, that's a coincidence because my number 8 is Sheriff of Nottingham as well. I love this one. And now I'm not sure because I have the expansion, if this was part of the expansion or the main game, but I think it's the expansion. Right. You can also smuggle people in. So... I guess you have this big bag.
Oh, yeah, no, because I haven't seen that.
Yeah, because they're worth a lot of points if you can smuggle them through. Because most of them, I think all of them are not, you cannot legally do that. So you're smuggling these people and they can give you big points. Or you have this, these type of like golden apples, or I don't know if that's part of the expansion, or this golden aged cheese.
Yeah, no, I've seen the golden apples.
Okay, so maybe those are part of the base. But the people are quite funny because you're like, I have 2 apples. You're looking around. No, because I would be a terrible, professional poker player because I'd be like, my cards. And so you just try to, they always call my bluff. They always know when I'm lying. I go, yeah, no, it's really 3 apples. Bull crap, that's 3 apples. They open it up. I have 2 people. I'm snuggling across the border. Nice. And then, yeah, I never win this game. But it's fun because the bribing that's going on. I'll pay you $30 to let me. And they're like, hey, I know you got something in there then, right? But I have 40 worth of points. So I don't know how to play those games properly. But it's fun to watch your family and how they lie and cheat. You're like, hold on.
Because sometimes you will offer a significant amount of money just to make them think,
and then they're
she's
like,
lying. I'm not letting her in. I'm going to look.
Yeah.
And there's like, hey, I was telling the truth.
Well, and you can make promises too. If you let me go this time, I'll let you go when I'm sheriff. And then you don't have to hold it to any promise, right? So you can totally go the political route and make all these promises and never fulfill them. It's such an interesting game. It's an interesting, just a project almost. Like you could you have a new son-in-law. Let's play this game. Let's really see what you're made of. Like something like
yeah, exactly. Will you fit in?
Yeah. Let's see how you lie. But yeah, no, it's fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. That's my number 8 as well. Sheriff of Nottingham.
That's funny. So my number 7 is Watson and Holmes. It was published in 2015. It's created by Asmodee, and it was made by Jesus Torres Castro. And this one, I only played it the one time at Shoebox. It was one of their game nights, and then we had pulled it out and played it, and it was so cool. So you have a board, and you're going around this board, and there's different areas that you can go visit, and it's obviously Sherlock Holmes based. And you'll go into these different areas, and you'll look at the card, and there's different scenarios. So depending on the scenario you're doing, which card gets brought out. And it'll kind of give you a segment of a story. It's like, well, so-and-so ended up having this in her purse, and she has so it's like you're getting little pieces of the stories, and you got to try to figure out who the murderer is, and you're kind of going around collecting all these chunk of the stories. And some stuff could be relevant, some stuff could be not relevant until you've gathered enough to piece it together. But then you can kind of make it like, I just got this complete useless piece of information, but you could put a token that kind of is like, it blocks it temporarily, or somebody has to pay extra to view that clue, and makes people think like, oh my God, that must be a really good clue. So you're going to try to go there, pay extra for the clue, and then you look at it, it's like, this is nothing. It's like, but then in the meantime, you've sent people on the wrong path, and kind of as you're trying to get more clue. It was really interesting. This is one that you would play through this kind of one time through all the scenarios. And then it would be a game that's used up probably.
It's like a campaign
but
game.
Honestly, there's not a whole lot of games that I can play. I have played more than 4 times, right? So if I get 10 plays out of a game, it was well worth it.
Oh, yeah.
So this is one that is on my wish list. It comes like in a blue box, but it's just really cool. It's kind of, instead of just gathering around and you get like tokens and stuff, like there's an actual store you're piecing together. So that aspect of it really appeals. So that's my number 7, Watson and Holmes.
Sounds cool. My number 7 is Decption Murder in Hong Kong. This is made in 2014 by Toby Ho. Now, this one I played at your house. That was the first time I played it. Before that, I had thought about buying it used. I had seen it on a site for $20, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how it plays, but I hear it's good. But I hear you need to have quite a few players. I don't know that I would get quite a few that would play that game. I don't know if my family would. So I had no idea. And then I played it at your place, and I know my family would like it because it's like a modern Clue. But and it plays quick too. Like I think we played 3 games at your house in
we
a
ended
matter
up playing
of
3
an hour,
games,
maybe hour, a little bit. It's so neat though. Like you start with cards in front of you, and they're all different than everybody else's. So you have weapons, and you have places or
items,
like items,
like items that got left on the side of the cream,
right?
The scene of the crime. Jesus, sign of the
Yeah, and then you do have a little bit of like a werewolf mechanic where you have to the person who is the investigator, what are they called? The person who
the forensic scientist.
The forensic scientist. They will kind of run the game. So they will say, okay, because you're dealt all these cards, so you're either the killer, you're either the witness, or bystander. Is that the 3 options?
Yeah, so there's a witness, there's a killer, then there's a accomplice, there's a forensic scientist, and there's detectives.
Oh, okay.
Depending on the number of players, how many gets brought out.
So obviously if you're the killer or the accomplice, you're trying to guide people away from that, getting the right person. But if you're the detectives, you're trying to figure out who it is. They can't figure out the accomplice though, right? You just guess the murderer. Well,
if you guess who the murderer is and they can figure out who the accomplice is, they still win.
They still win. Okay. Yeah. It's neat though because you, as the murderer, you get to choose your weapon and your item right? You get to choose those things. Oh, the place, because it's a location in your house, right? Like, because I know I had a kitchen.
Well, not necessarily.
Oh, it's not always a location? The game we played,
no, it's
I
not
had
necessarily
chose
the location.
The kitchen and some sort of kitchen utensil, and I was like, oh, that was a giveaway. I didn't realize, because everyone's like, oh, those go together, and I'm like, oh, that was dumb of me to choose that. But that game was over really fast. Whoever guessed it was like in the second round. I think they guessed it. But then we played 2 more times, and it was really interesting. It's a neat little deduction game that plays really fast. Like, I did not think it would play that fast, but super neat. That was my number 7, Deception, Murder in Hong Kong.
Yeah, that one's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
My number 6 is Watergate. It was published in 2019, created by Matthias Kramer, and it was published by Frosted Games. And this one, and I'm putting it into the crime scene because it ended up it's about an actual historical event while Nixon was he was a president, and it actually ended up causing a big FBI investigation. And what was happening is Nixon because I had never, I had heard of the Watergate scandal, but I didn't know what it was about. So before I played it, I kind of ended up researching that a little bit. And what was happening is Nixon had a military background and was doing tons of war while he was in power. And then to the point where the people were getting really upset and frustrated with the whole thing because their loved ones are overseas at war all the time. Mm-hmm. And they're getting sick of it. So the Nixon administration is trying to make sure that he gets elected again, and they're kind of taking not so legal approach to this, and they're destroying documents that would kind of prove some of the stuff that he was doing, and they were kind of buying out people so that some of this stuff wouldn't come to light. And some of the stuff was documents they had destroyed at the Watergate location, and there was 2 journalists that were kind of got a wind of some of this stuff, and they were digging super deep trying to create these links to kind of bring everything up kind of out in the open, and eventually it did trigger an FBI investigation. But in this game, it's a tug-of-war. It's a 2-player tug-of-war game. One plays as the Nixon administration, and their goal is to try to hide some of this evidence that's coming to light and to get Nixon elected again. And then the other players playing as the journalist, trying to get these evidence, create a link to these people that are going to kind of become witness. And it's so interesting. So you have these cards that you'll play, and you can kind of say, okay, well, I'll move the token towards me, or I'll move an evidence towards me. And now the Nixon is the one that pulls the evidence, and they know what the colors they are, while the other ones don't know. Be like, okay, well, if there's a blue token, move the blue token 3 space towards me. It's like, well, no, there's no blue token, then no blue evidence, then you would move a token instead. And if the token is on your side, like the red one on your side would give you special ability if you're the journalist, or the Nixon, you have to collect 4 of them or 5 of them to get elected again. And then the white one just makes you first player, but first player gets an extra card, so there's benefit to that as well. And then you could do the top action, or you can do a bigger action that's going to do something more significant, but if you use the card to do the bigger action, that card is discarded from the game completely. Mm-hmm. And then you have less cards as you go through. But it is such a neat tug-of-war game and then when you get the clues, Nixon will put these they'll put these evidence on the black side because they've destroyed the evidence, and they're trying to block the path, while the journalists are going to put them on the color side. Now the colors has to go in certain portion of the board, and they're trying to make a link from the Nixon, who's in the center of this cork board, and trying to create a link to one of the informants. But the informants, Nixon can buy them off, and you have to kind of create that. It is so neat. It is such an interesting game about like this criminal act that had happened. And that's my number 6, Watergate.
Yeah, it's a very neat game. Awesome pick. My number 6 is called Micro Macro Crime City. This is made by Joanna Sitch and made in 2020. there is recently a newer version of the game called Micro Macro Crime City Full House, which is more of a family version. But this first version is quite interesting. It's this big black and white map, and with all kinds of people and all kinds of places on it in this city. And what you do is there's all different scenarios. I can't remember how many are in the game, but they have different star ratings on them. So like say 2 stars, very easy, and then it goes to 3, 4, or 5. So it starts with like just a starting scenario, just to kind of show you how to play. And you start with this card and it'll ask you like, okay, go find this person in this location. They kind of describe this person in this location. So you look on this map and you're like, okay, well, it said like a pizza restaurant or something. So it's like a big sign with a pizza on it. So you know that's the pizza restaurant. And it shows you a picture and also describes the guy. So they're all kind of cartoony people. But so you find this guy and then it'll ask you questions like, okay, so what happened to him, and like where did he, like you have to solve the whole crime of like where did he die or how did he die. And so you look on the map and then you start looking kind of backwards because you're like, okay, well, where was he? So you can look back on the map and you see where he was earlier because he's walking towards this location, or he was going kind of towards like another spot and then turning. And it's so interesting because you're like, how did they make this game? Like there's all these different stories entwined in this city, and they all seem to like, I don't know, they all connect in certain ways. But anyway, so you look back and then you see, okay, this guy was here. He was buying flowers. Like this is not an actual scenario. I'm just kind of like making something that is similar to one, but you see he was buying flowers. But when he was buying flowers, there's somebody here who was like, I don't know, stealing from his pocket or something. And you're like, okay, so that person was stealing. Well, where was this guy? Then you look back and you're like, what was he doing? Well, he was with this guy's girlfriend. Like you kind of go back into this story and there's like adultery in there. There's all kinds of different adult acts in there. They don't show the acts, but you can see how it was kind of made, and it's so funny and interesting. And you can see then you also go forward from where like the story began. You're like, oh my god, he ended up here. Oh, somebody shot him over here. They threw him in the lake. And you can see this whole story on this map. And it's just amazing, I think, how they made it. And it's really interesting. And I mean, you could play that with kids. I don't know, you'd want to play this version with kids because there's a lot of adult material in it. They might not pick up on that, but some of the scenarios were quite interesting because I won't even go into it, but you have to get this game and try it. I don't know, have you tried it, Melanie?
I did.
Yeah. It's so interesting, hey? And it's such a cool map. I want to go in and color it all, but you'll have to color the same person, all the same color. So I would like some kid to want to do that for me one day. I don't know, but it's so cool. And it's like a Where's Waldo meets like Crime City kind of thing. Like it's just the coolest little unique game. Like I think it's won awards for intuitive, like a new kind of idea for a game. I think it was even up for some like German awards as well. I can't remember if it won, but it is a very neat game. That's my number 6, Micro Macro Crime City.
Yeah, that one's really good.
Yeah.
My number 5 is Bang the Dice Game. Published in 2013, created by Michael Palm and Lucas Zach, and it was created by Abacus Spiel. And this one is just like one person is the sheriff, one person is the deputy, then you have your outlaws and you have the renegades. So it's all about, like this crime fest or whatever. And the identities are secret except for the sheriff. Now you know who the sheriff is, you don't know who anybody else is, and you have these dice and you roll the dice, and some will have like a target on it with a 1 or a 2, and that's you can shoot. If it's a 1, you can shoot the person that's 1 space away from you on either side. If it's 2, then you can shoot somebody 2 spaces away on either side. If you get an arrow, you got to pick up an arrow, which doesn't do anything until all the arrows have been picked up. Then those get turned into hits, and you got to put them back in the middle. You have like the 3 targets, and that's the Gatling gun. And if you get 3 of those, then everybody takes a hit other than you. And it's just really interesting how you're playing, trying to figure out, because the renegade's going to pretend he's your deputy. You don't know for sure. Or sometimes you'll just be like, you know what? I'm coming out. I'm the outlaw, and I'm going to try to kill you. And then it's like, okay, the other outlaws, help me out here. So you can play different ways. And I remember the first time we played this was when we were visiting in New Brunswick. My cousin had this game, and we ended up playing it pretty much every day for 2 weeks. And my cousin's boyfriend was there, and he's like kind of confused with the first game, wasn't sure what's going on, and he ended up shooting the sheriff. And then the sheriff's like, oh, well, gee, I guess I know who you are. And he's like, oh, no. And he's like, shows me his card. He's a deputy. He's like, I don't think I played this right. It's like, so the deputy is shooting the sheriff by accident. And it was so neat. But it's one of those that it's always so well received. It's pretty much like a party game.
Yeah.
And then we brought it at Lee's mom and dad for Christmas, and his siblings were there, and his niece and nephews were there, and we ended up playing this game like 10 times in a row.
Oh, really?
And they're like, okay, again. It's like, okay, again. And it's just so satisfying, rolling the dice, assigning the thing. Is like, okay, well, I think you're the renegades. I'm going to kill you. And then you kill them, and it's like, oh, shoot, you were my deputy? Like, it's so interesting. And that's my number 5, Bang the Dice game.
Yeah, that's a really good party game. That's my type of party game. I like party games, but still with some, like, you got to roll dice, you got to do this, not just say something or do one thing. I like that one. It's added in there. That's a good one. My number 5 is, I'm assuming this is going to be on your list. I'm guessing. But this is Chronicles of Crime. But this is the Noir expansion. Made in 2018 by Stephanie Anquetel and David Securel. I'm going to say Securel. Now, this game comes in all kinds of versions. The base game is just Chronicles of Crime, and then it has 2 expansions, Noir and Red View. And then now it has like 1900, 2400. What's the other one? Or
1400.
1400, right. 14, 19, and 24, right? And then it has a kids version. Like, it's just exploding. Now, I did have the base game for a while. I tried it a couple times with my family. Didn't really go over. Then I bought the expansion, and I tried it with Ashley. And no, I tried the base game with Ashley. I bought this after and tried this one with Cherry, and we didn't solve it. Like, we were close, but we did not solve it. The thing is, what this adds, so the base game, you have all these different people that you'll learn about and their cards, and then you can take your phone and scan these people, and they'll basically make them talk, and they'll talk about whoever you ask to talk about. You can go to locations or ask them about locations. You can go to the site of the crime and get all this different information, which will give you all kinds of clues, so you can ask all these different people about the clues, and some of them will really spill their guts and some will just not say too much. And so you just kind of go around scanning all these people and these clues, and asking the people about the clues and asking the people about other people, until you kind of come up with like what you think happened. Then you can go and solve the crime, and it'll ask you all these different questions. It's not just who did it, it's who did it, where did they do it, why did they do it, did they do it with someone, did they, like, so you have to you get graded on it after. You can pass or fail, but you can barely pass because you've gotten like one thing right, and then failed to do the rest of them right. But what the Noir adds, it's really cool. It adds 4 different things. One thing is you can use force. So some people you'll talk to, they'll just say, no, I don't know anything. And then you can use the force thing. So you'll scan this thing and they'll be like, oh, okay, I'll talk. Or they might say, no, sorry, I'm going to the cops. You just assaulted me, or were about to assault me. You can bribe them. You have so much money at the beginning of the game. You can bribe them into letting you into a location or telling you something, and they will either do it or they will not. So then your money's gone. You can also break into places, which is like after hours. If something's closed and you can't get in, you can break in and then look around at this site. It's really neat. And I mean, I haven't won yet with this new one, but it's so interesting, and because you're exploring around, seeing who you can like push around or who you can bribe and all this stuff. But it's so neat. I haven't played any of the 2419, but I hear they're just awesome. I think you've played a couple of them, and I look forward to it. I just wish there was more time to play games, because I would love to take a whole week and just play all this Chronicles of Crime and just pretend I'm a detective for a week and actually believe I am for a while. But that's my number 5, Chronicles of Crime Noir expansion.
Perfect. So my number 4 is a crossover.
Yeah.
And that's Decption, Murder in Hong Kong. And that one is just so neat. Like, it's funny. Like, I've played this one with my friend Allison, and that girl can lie through her teeth like nobody's business. And I have like the 4 cards. You got your 4 weapons and the 4 items left behind. And we were playing 3 players. So, or 4 players or something. So I knew, it was like, okay, well, it's not me, so that means it's her. Like, it was kind of one of those where it was really obvious. And then she's convincing the person's like, yeah, she's doing that because she know she's guilty. Mm-hmm. And and I would say something, it's like, oh, but it's her. And it's like, yeah, that's what a guilty person would say. And like, it was, and then like, oh yeah, Allison, I think she's telling the truth. I'm like, oh my God, but it was hilarious. And this is one that every time I've played it, it's been a hoot. It's been so much fun. And then that one time, with the three games we played when you guys were over, it was so neat. Kind of the way, it's like, okay, the way that Mike is talking, he sounds
was suspicious.
It's like, but then it's not just knowing who did it, because you got to know which weapon and which item. But then is he the murderer, or is he the accomplice and trying to put the blame towards him and seeming suspicious? And then I overthink the whole thing, right?
Oh,
like,
me too. Because I thought, was he trying to help his daughter? Yeah. But he wasn't at all. Yeah,
exactly. Thought, it's kind of like, okay,
he's just trying to make it so that she doesn't get caught.
What's going on here? Why did you just say that? Yeah, it was so funny. It's a great game. So that's my number 4, Decption, Murder in Hong Kong.
Awesome. My number 4 is called Burgle Brothers by Tim Fowers, made in 2015. Now, this game to me is a modern version of that Break the Safe game I was talking about. Only you're just basically using cards and dice. And so what you have set up in front of you are these square tiles of 3 levels of this building. And you start in the first level. And you each have a player power and a little player pawn. And you can move around this little grid. And what you're trying to do is find the safe and then break it open. But while you're doing that, after each of your turns, you're rolling the dice. And the security guard is walking around too. And depending on which card you flip and how you roll, he will move in that direction. It always seems to be he's moving in your direction. Just out of the luck. But so you're trying to move, but you don't want to move too close to him because his card could move him right into you. And then that way he would catch you and you have to lose like a life kind of thing, like a little token. And if you lose 3, you lose the game. So there's ways to get some of those back. But it's not just moving around finding the safe. You have to go through different things. There might be laser beams, or there might be like an alarm that sets off and he'll come really close to you. And then all these different things. So you're moving around. Plus, you could go onto another floor while this person's on the first floor and look around up there. And then there's another security guard up there that's moving around. So it's like, it's really tricky. But you can also collect these things that will help you hide. Like you're in a bathroom stall and you're hanging on the bathroom stall with your feet up and he walks in or whatever and he can't see you because you have this stealth or something it's called. But anyway, once you find a safe on each level, you have these other dice and you pay like I think turns or something to collect these dice and you'll roll them. And you have to get all these numbers on the card. And so that part is very lucky because you could roll all 3 or 4 of them at once, depending on how many dice you have. Or it could take you 5 turns to get this safe open. But once you get it open, then you usually leave with some sort of like something out of the safe, something that's really cool that will help you, or it's like worth a lot of money or something. But as soon as you open that safe and leave, the alarm goes off and the cop or the security guard is coming right after you. So you want to head up to the next floor and look around there. And so what you need to do is do this on all 3 floors. And once you get stuff out of the safe, then you head up to the helicopter and you fly away and you win. It's a very hard game to win, but it's really fun. And I know, like, with the little, once the safe goes off, I bought these little, like, flashing lights that have a siren on them that I put on. So as soon as I open that safe, I put it on, because then it's like, oh shit, I gotta get out of here and get up to the next floor. And it just helps with the theme. But it's really neat. And I played it with the kids a couple times. It's quite a long game, so it's not the same as their Break the Safe that we were little, but it's still really fun, and I love the production of it. They have made a second version of it now, and it's like a casino, like you're stealing from a casino. So there's a few little different mechanics that people say are better than the first game, but I haven't got into that second one yet. But it's really neat, and it's cooperative because you have to work together. And that's my number 4, Burgle Brothers.
That one sounds cool. I've never played it, but I bet you it's someone I would like.
Well, it comes in one of those little square boxes, like paperback, because that's Tim Fowers' the production for all those.
Oh, yeah.
So and there's tons of stuff in this box. So to get it all back in is like Tetris the game again. Get it all back in and close it up. It's like, whoa, that was a whole game in itself. But yeah, it's neat.
That sounds cool. Perfect. So my number 3 is another crossover, and that's Micro Macro.
Oh, good.
I bought the Full House one for my sister for Christmas, this past Christmas. And she loved it and played it, I think, almost all the scenarios in like one go. And I had never played it yet. And then I ended up buying my copy secondhand, and we played it for the first time just this last week. And it was me, Lee, and Patrick. And, I mean, Patrick will play Uno, but it's like pulling teeth to get him to play. So we set the map up, and it's a big, huge map. And then we did the kind of beginning learning scenario. And then we ended up doing 4th scenario, and he's kind of like, okay, should we do more? Like, he loved it. And it was just so cool. I was like, okay, well, you're finding this. Well, what happened? And you kind of move your way backwards to kind of find out what happened. It's like, well, who did that? And then you kind of go back midway. It's like, oh, it was there. And then, well, where did they go? And then, like, you know, so the whole, it just takes you all over. Oh, yeah. And you kind of going through all the questions. It was really interesting. And it was, it kind of has that nostalgia, Where's Waldo, but actually turned into a game, right? Yeah. So that was my number 3, Micro Macro. Awesome.
My number 3 is called Mysterium Park. This was made in 2020 by Alexander Novisky and Oleg Sidorenko. Now, this is a second take on Mysterium, the game. But with Mysterium Park, it's a little bit shorter and a little more streamlined. And what you're doing is you are a ghost, and you are trying to portray the message or the suspect of this crime that happened. And so one player will play that, and they have this little grid in front of them, and you will put cards on this grid. And you will first do locations, I believe. So you put out all these different locations, and then you have this big deck of cards, and these cards have like all this abstract art on them. If you've ever played, what's it called with a D? What's that word? If you've ever played Mysterium or Dixit, that's the word, the game.
Oh, right, Dixit, yeah.
Same kind of cards, like very abstract, beautiful, weird, wonky art on them. So what you're doing is you're going to pick a few cards out of here, and you're going to lay them down and say, like, this is like, well, you don't say anything. You'll just be like, these describe one of the like locations. And so they'll look at these cards and be like, what is going on here? Like, this could describe this I can't remember if it's person first or location. I think it's location, but the order doesn't matter. It's how you play the game. And so they'll they'll look at these cards and be like, okay, well, there's a balloon in this one. There's like clowns here, or there's kids. Like maybe that goes together. And in my mind, I'm like, what? Balloon? No, the balloon is a red round circle and there's round balls over here. Like in your head, you have this big idea. You're like, this is perfect. And then they're going off on this tangent and you're like, no, that's not it. But sometimes it works out. Sometimes they are on the same wavelength as you. Yeah. It's just very interesting. But once, say they took 2 or 3 rounds and they did figure it out. Well, okay, you put that card aside and then you would do the person and the next thing would be like a weapon. And then the final round, if they make it that far, you will have like 2 or 3 different whole like sets of like either like a place, a weapon and a person. And then they have to guess one whole complete set. So again, you're using the cards and you get to draw more cards each round, but you can play so many per like round that, and then once you've played them, then that's it. You're kind of stuck and you're just like sitting there hoping they'll figure it out or put 2 and 2 together that you had this big idea in your head. And it's just so neat. It's a very abstract way of thinking because, you know, especially if I'm not a very creative person. So in my head, like, it's always like, it's got a round circle. It's got to be round circle there. Or, you know, like it's all this like direct stuff. Whereas some people play this game and they have these huge imaginations and I'm looking at like matchy things or something and they've had this, well, that's the clown that took the kids that did this, and I'm like, what are you talking about? It's so neat. I'd love to try this with multiple different people because it really, you can really see inside people's brains in games like this. Like, yeah, what are you thinking? You know, or wow, you really have an interesting mind. It's a really cool game. Mysterium Park. I like to play this at Halloween. Definitely have a Halloween night with this game. That's my number 3.
Yeah. I have Mysterium and I have Dixit. So I've never played Mysterium Park, but I do enjoy the other 2. Yeah. But see, and in my household, some of them love them and some of them hate that abstract thinking. Yeah. Oh, some people absolutely hate it. It doesn't get played in here often, but it's one that I do love. Yeah. Mysterium and that was your number...
That was my number 3. Yeah. I might have said 2, but
number 3. Perfect. Yeah. So my number 2 is a crossover. Imagine that. And this was a toss-up between 2 and 1. Like they were so close. And I played number 1 more recently, and that's probably why it kind of made it that number 1. But my number 2 is Chronicles of Crime. I love this series. It is so good. It's so good. Lucky Duck Games is so good at creating these games where you go to a location, you scan the location, and it kind of pops up like what's happening there. Then you can scan the individuals, and then they're like having a conversation with them, and then you can actually look around the scene with your phone and kind of, oh, I noticed some papers over there. So then you go scan the card that represents paper and see if there's any clues there. And it's just the interaction of it all is so amazing. And I don't have the noir or the red view one, but that noir sounds really interesting. You can borrow mine
because it's not one you need to own. There's only 4 scenarios in it, so you can totally borrow.
Okay, right, yeah. I'll have to try it sometime. But then I've got the base. I've got the 1400, the 1900, the 2400. I haven't played the 2400 yet. That's the latest one I've added. But I loved it so much that I ended up buying Destinies, which has the same mechanism. I haven't played it yet, but it's kind of more like you're walking around the map, right? And it's not cooperative. It's you're doing your own, but you got a couple of destinies you're trying to accomplish as you're going around, but it's the same mechanism. And then I ended up backing Dark Quarter Whole Damn Agency, which is more like a crime solving in Louisiana or like the where the Mardi Gras kind of setup. So you got
New Orleans
and in New Orleans, and it just seems so interesting. Again, kind of following that whole system, also by Lucky Duck Games. So I really love that. So that's my number 2, Chronicles of Crimes.
Awesome. So all 3 of those are Lucky Duck? Chronicle, Destinies, and that new one?
Chronicles, Destinies, this one coming up. Yeah, it's kind of... Lucky Duck Games is really kind of ran with this whole interactive kind of app-driven game. And they're doing so good with it.
Yeah,
So.
It's very innovative. Very innovative game. I like it. Awesome. So that's your number 2. My number 2 is The Bloody Inn. This is made in 2015 by Nicholas Robert. I've talked about this game before. It's got a hilarious theme, and I say hilarious because it's like very tongue-in-cheek. It doesn't take itself serious at all. What you're doing is you have a hand of cards, and you start out with some peasants in your hand. And then there's these guests that come to this inn, right? And it's your inn, and depending if they stay there and are alive or if they are in your door, because you have little keys that'll go on doors. If they stay there at the end, you'll get like a point for them or money for them. But the other way that you can get money is you can kill people and bury them and steal their money out of their pockets. It's such a funny game because you have all different suits of cards, and one of the suits has a gun on it, and those will help you kill people. Or you have a suit with money on it, and that'll help you bribe people. And then you have a suit with a shovel on it, and that helps you bury people. So depending on how many cards, if you can get those cards in your hand, but you have to use cards to get cards, then you can use those people to help you do these things. And the funny thing is, because if you do kill somebody, but there's cops in your hotel and nobody has like picked them up in their hands, so they're still in the hotel, well, then they're going to catch you and you're going to have to give up all this money if you haven't buried them by the end of this round. And you only have 2 actions, I think it is, per round. So it's very like, I can only do 2 things. So I either have to kill and bury, but if I don't have anybody to help me bury, I can't do it because I don't have enough cards in my hand. So I have to do this, this, and this, and then next round maybe I can do it. So you get other people to help you. Oh, and then you also have to build annexes to put these people in. And you, if not, you can bury them in other people's annexes, but then you have to split the money. And then there's only a certain amount of money on the board that you can get before you have to deposit it in the bank. That's another action. So it's very, like, you know, I don't know, you've probably played lots of games where it's like there's such limited actions that you're like, I have to, like, you know, make the best out of every little card I have in my hand. And with this theme, added to it, it's just hilarious. I don't have the expansion. The expansion, it's called Carnies, and it adds a little bit of even more quirkiness to the game. It's very hard to find. I had it in my cart once a year or 2 ago, and I just kind of hummed and hawed. Now I totally regret it because I haven't been able to find it since. But that's my number 2, Bloody Inn. Another Halloween game.
That is such a funny...
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Perfect. So my number 1... which is a game that we played not too long ago, and I was so impressed with it, and that's Awkward Guests. Published in 2016, created by Ron Gonzalo Garcia, and it was created by Megacorpin Games. And this one is so on my wish list now. But it's basically a clue game. You have the shield in front of you, and you have your sheet, but this sheet has tons on it. So you have all the different suspects, and you have all the different motives that could potentially be reason why they're committed a crime. And then you have a map of the house, and each location has different items in there that could be used as a weapon. And there's like different links, but then you're going around and you start with so many cards, and then you kind of look at the cards, and they all say a certain clue. And now, the victims or the suspects could lie, so you got to take what they're saying with a grain of salt. But if it's the police officer or one of the staff members, and that's for real. So it could be like one of the staff saying, well, nobody came through the shed area. So then you could, okay, well, they didn't go through that way, so chances are it's not these weapons. Or the police would come back and say it wasn't blunt force trauma, so then that rules out so many different weapons and so on. So you kind of collect all this, and then you take turns kind of selecting what you'd like to have more information on. And then you'll kind of say, well, I want to know more about this suspect, and I want to know more about this area, or about these two suspects, or about these two rooms, or whatever you want to know about. And then everybody else will look at their cards and see what they have that is a clue. Now, they could opt to not give you anything. But it could be like, okay, sure, I've got 2 cards here that I could give you. And each cards have a value associated with it. So let's say this has a value of 4. So they'll put the 2 cards down and they'll put a 4 token on it. And if you want to see these clues, you got to go through your own cards and give cards that equals to value of 4 or more to do the trade. So then by giving these clues away, you get new cards into your hand that gives you more information on the crime. And then they get more information as well. And then you do that. Then once everybody's taken a turn doing that, you discard your hand to 3 cards. And you draw more cards, and then you kind of go with the new clues as well. It was so neat. But what's super cool about it is this box has tons and tons of cards. Like, it is filled. And he used an app to kind of create the scenario. And then, like, so the setup takes a bit because they got to go through all and pull out the cards that is for that particular scenario. And it changes it up all the time. So I was super impressed with this one. It was so neat. I sucked at it. I was not even close. But that's my number 1 awkward guests.
Awesome pick. Yeah, I really like this one too. And they had kickstarted a newer version of this. Did you hear Peter talking about that when we were playing? Oh, I forget what the theme is.
I think, yeah, but
something about politicians or something, but it sounded kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll be coming out pretty soon. My number 1 is Caper Europe, made in 2022 by Une Rubio. This one I've talked about a few times too. This is a 2-player game, and this was a remake on the game Caper, which was made quite a while ago. This is such a fun game and has such a quick, unique mechanic that to me it feels like it's an evergreen game. Like, you know, one of those games, I mean, we have so many of them that will just stay in our collection forever. Because you know they're just gonna last forever. It's so fun. You have this big long board in front of you, and it has 3 locations on it. And the game comes with, I think, 4 or 5 different locations in Europe. So you'll pick out these certain cards and you'll add them into the decks, because there's also base decks. And you have a deck of thieves and you have a deck of gear. And you have 6 rounds, and it'll alternate a round of thieves, a round of gear, thieves, gear, thieves, gear. And so you'll deal out the thieves in the first round, and I think you each have 6 turns in the first round, and it kind of goes lower and lower. You get less turns. So you'll look at your hand of cards and you're like, okay, I'm going to play this thief. So you'll play your thief and then you pass your hand to the other player. So you don't get to just use the hand you have. You will, draft back and forth. So you'll play this thief down in one of the 3 locations. And most times this thief will give you money, which is good because then you can use it to buy gear in the next round. But sometimes it'll just give you advance on this location because you have this little pawn that is at each location and you want it to advance to the end of theirs because then you've won that location. But they're also going to be pushing back with their thieves. So sometimes you'll get a thief that'll push it 3 spots. And once it gets off the board, well, then you've won and they can't do anything about it. So, but as soon as you do that, they're going to obviously pick one to push it back because they don't want to lose that location. Because if you don't have that location, you can't score the location card, which can give you big points. Now, it's not just about the thieves because the thieves will also have a color on them, right? And so each location will score differently. It can score on the color of the card, it can score on the numbers of the cards or the combinations of the cards. It's all different kinds of scoring things. And depending how you put your thieves, because you can have 2 thieves at each location, they will score differently. They'll score differently with your gear because then in the next round you're going to have all this gear and you're going to place it down, and some of the things can blow up something on their end, so they have to take that card off, and if it pushed the pawn over 3, we'll have to move it back because that card is gone. Or if that card gave them $6, they have to pay that $6 back. So it's quite a take that game. But there's also these little precious items that you can take, and that's a little set collection on its own. So there's a bunch of these little mini games playing and during this whole game, and it's so fun, and it's such a good 2-player game, a perfect couples game. add that to your couples list when you do your next one.
Right.
But it's so good. I just love it, and I don't get to play it enough. I had it pulled out today. Me and John played a game together, and then we played with my son and his girlfriend a bunch of other games, but this was on my list to play, so it'll be our next 2-player game we play no matter what. But I love it. It's my number 1 Caper Europe.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
So that is our top 9 games, and I'm sure we could have came up with more easily. You for sure could have, because I know you have a lot more that you've played. But next week we're going to talk about our top worker placement games. That is going to be a tough one for me. That's another one of my favorite genres. So many good worker placement games. Be very interesting. But until next week, it's a fun one. Until next week, if people want to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
So my Facebook page is Boardgame Mama and Friends are playing all the games. I am on Instagram as boardgame_mama, and my YouTube channel is Boardgame Mama. Now, also this month, friends of mine run a podcast called Boardgame Chats, and every month they have a different guest speaker, and this month I was the guest speaker.
Oh, right.
So I talk about how I got involved with board games, with Falcon, with games and couples. We laughed a lot, actually. So if you want to check that out, definitely go over to Board Game Chats and have a listen over there as well. Now, how about you, Carla? How can we get a hold of you?
I'm on Instagram at Board Game Specialists, all one word. And I also have a Facebook page called Red Deer Board Game Fanatics. So until next time, next week, we will see you guys again. And thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.